there, eBay sellers. Welcome to episode number 59 of eBay the Right Way. I'm Suzanne A. Wells, and today's date is May 4th, 2022. Nancy Sell is my guest in this episode, and I had to wait 5 weeks to get her on the podcast because she was busy in South America, and she will explain that. Okay, so let's get into the chat with Nancy.
Hello, listeners. Today we have Nancy Sell with us. And yes, that's really her last name. I was kidding around with her on YouTube, I think, thinking that was just like a stage name, but it's real. So, how are you this morning, Nancy?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Great. And where are you located?
I am located in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is about an hour north of Boston. And it's in the little part of New Hampshire that's right on the coast. There's about 15 miles that's on the coast. So I can be in Massachusetts in 15 minutes and Maine in 5.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
So is it a rocky coast?
Parts of it are rocky. That's a little bit more up in Maine, but we also have sandy beaches.
Oh, that's so nice. And so how long does it take you to get to the beach?
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm so jealous.
But then again, it's New Hampshire, so we only have about 2 months where you could actually get in the water.
Right.
But I go to the beach in the wintertime as well.
I bet it's beautiful with the snow.
Yeah. If it's too snowy, you don't really see that on the beach.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Well, that's one of my bucket list items is to live at the beach at some point, either as a second residence or permanent residence, even if it's just for a period of time. I just think that would be amazing just to be there at the beach. It's so convenient and beautiful and energizing. That's just, I am a little jealous. So
yeah, it's very nice. I can just pop down even in the winter off season for just a quick walk along the beach. It's really nice.
And that does a lot for you, even just 30 minutes being out there, the sand, the salt, the sun, if there is any, just the wind or the breeze, whatever you got. I mean, it completely changes your energy. So if you need a pick me up, or if you're dealing with stress, you just go out there and walk and you just feel better.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Now the second standard question is, how did you get started selling on eBay?
Well, after my father died, so my mother died when I was fairly young, and then my father died in 2017. And this sort of second and third time of going through people's houses and seeing how much stuff they had packed away and, inheriting some of it. And I also got some things from my aunt and my grandmother. And I thought, I don't want to do this to my kids and have them picking through boxes of things that I don't even know what's in them. So I decided I was going to get rid of some of this stuff. So what I thought I would do was sell some of it to an antique store. So I called an antique store and I said, I've got some of these China sets and other things, Japanese porcelain, that kind of stuff. Would you buy them? And she said, well, you can bring them in and we'll have a look at them and see if there's anything that we want to buy. So I went in and she told me, well, I might be interested in one or two things, but you can rent a case here if you want. And, you pay us a little commission and a monthly fee, and then people can come in and buy things from your case. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll try that. So I did that. And hardly anybody bought anything because it's such a small audience.
Yeah, it's all about the foot traffic and who sees it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so when I decided I didn't want to do it anymore because it wasn't making enough money to make it worthwhile, she said, you might try eBay because you get a much wider audience that way. And she showed me how to filter out to the solds, so I would know how to price and things, because I didn't know that. I wasn't at all familiar with eBay. And so I started posting a few things, and I was hooked, as you say, one big sale or even a small sale. And, I was a lifer, I guess.
But it's interesting how in families, there's that one person I call the filter down person. Like they seem to be the one that's handling when someone dies or downsizes. It's like it all falls on that person.
Well,
And
I don't think that's true in my case. I just think there was enough stuff, I have two brothers. There was enough stuff to go to everybody, and I know that my kids aren't going to want that stuff.
yeah, but it's a common story. Do you mind if I ask what year you were born?
1960.
Okay. So yeah, you're in that generation where all, the parents are aging
Right.
and it just falls on us, right? And
right.
the kids, which would be their grandkids, they don't care. They don't want to deal with it. And I was at Goodwill yesterday. Actually, I went to 2 Goodwills yesterday. I did a marathon shopping, so 6 hours. And I found all this mid-century modern stuff that I'd never seen before. Like it keeps showing up, all these things that I've been looking for that like been on my mental list. And, if you do this enough, if you hunt enough, you're going to find it. But I feel like that sometimes it falls on the younger generations, the millennials or even younger, to deal with all this stuff. And they just, they just need to get through that process, deal with the estate, and get back to their life. And there's just not time, because you'll find somebody and be like, I can't believe somebody donated this. And it's just, they're not in the reselling mindset, the reselling world. They just, it just keeps flowing, and they're like, yeah, I gotta close out this estate and get back to my life and my family and my job. And it's a huge time and energy suck to deal with an estate.
Yeah, it's a burden that you leave for your children. So I'm trying not to do that to my children.
Well, I commend you on that, because so many people they just don't want to think about it.
Right.
I've got in-laws that are, my ex-father-in-law died last year. And so it's my ex-husband's mom. And I mean, her house is just full of stuff going all the way back to the 60s. And she just won't deal with it. She won't part with anything. And my kids have already said, we're not doing it. We're not going through Nana's stuff. It's too much. So it's going to be a huge undertaking. I mean, she's got my ex-husband's drawings from kindergarten, all this stuff still packed away, like never rehomed it, never said, okay, son, here's your stuff from kindergarten, you deal with it. So, and I feel bad because I know so much of that stuff's just going to go to the dump. And it could be, my daughter's tried to say, hey, Nana, let me sell some of your stuff and start working on it. And she has no interest. She just doesn't want to part with anything. She doesn't want to admit that one day she's not going to be there. She doesn't want to think about it. So I think that's part of the reason things accumulate is,
right. Exactly.
And I'm like you, in my business, I've helped so many people deal with this. It's like when I moved last year, I was like, it's a reset. I'm not bringing anything into this home that I don't need or use. And I think that may sound kind of harsh to people, but it's like, I see what happens when you let things accumulate. And it is terribly emotional for the survivors to have to pick through your stuff.
Exactly. And I think part of it too is, the older generation, like my parents' age, they didn't move very often. They had basically one house. And so stuff really piled up. And nowadays people tend to move a little more frequently. So there's a little bit more of the downsizing that goes on as you move each time.
Right, exactly. So it's definitely a process, but I do feel bad for the people that this burden falls on them because it really is, you're right, it is a burden
Yeah.
to have to stop your life and go through all these things. And
And to try to second guess, because you don't know how important any of these things are to the person unless you were, sort of intimately involved in helping them pack it away in the first place. And sometimes you don't even know what it is, where it
Mhm.
came from. And so it's emotionally draining as well to try to figure out what to do with this stuff.
Yeah, I'm helping a friend through that process. We're on the second year of doing it now, and she's finding old photographs. She doesn't even know who the people are.
Right.
It's just like, nobody she recognizes is in the photo. She doesn't know who they are. She'd like to get the photos to the people who are in them, but there's nothing written on them. Like they don't even know who these people are, which, yeah, you can sell some of that stuff for the vintage value, but then you start thinking, as far as the person who passed away, what would they want? And one of the best solutions is if you don't know and you're overwhelmed, find a charity they would support and donate it to that charity and let them deal with it in their thrift stores or whatever. So, and then at least you feel good about how you disposed of the items. You didn't just throw
Right.
them away. Just find a charity they were involved in or a cause, whether it's animals or veterans or whatever. And then you can feel good about it's because it's all about how you feel about how you disposed of the stuff. And then you don't carry that around about, oh, should I have thrown that away or not? I feel bad. Yeah. So what kind of things do you sell, Nancy?
Well,
Sell?
I sell just about anything that I think I can make money on. I like smaller items if I can get them. And kind of like you said, those things that aren't on everybody's radar, those are my favorite things to find. For example, I didn't realize how much money art supplies could bring in.
Oh,
Like
yes.
vintage pencils or vintage paints, even. You think would they be dried up, but I guess they aren't. And
Yeah, I
so
don't think the oil paints dry up.
I guess they don't.
Yeah, my mom I wouldn't say she was an artist, but she was she was musical. She could paint and draw. And when she came to live with me back in 2003, when I first started this, we went through her things, and she had a beautiful wooden case opened up. Inside was all her oil paints. They were like, I don't know, 40 years old, something like that. And the brushes, and we sold that for several $100s.
Right, exactly.
And I learned, wow, look for oil paints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pencils and a lot of old art supplies they don't even have to be old necessarily, but so that's just the idea of the kind of things I like are sort of a little bit more unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
As you talk about, I like to sell linens and blankets. So I find like recently I found a set of sheets that were branded by 17 magazine in conjunction with some linen company. So they were old vintage sheets for teenagers, I guess.
What did they look
haven't
like?
sold. They haven't sold yet, so I don't. They were very pretty. They were sort of a tropical pattern.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have them listed for like $49 or something.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't sold yet, but I like to find those kinds of things as well. And the blankets, with the satin trim.
Mm-hmm.
Because at an estate sale somewhere, most people aren't noticing those kinds of things. So, you don't have to kind of elbow people out of your way to get at them.
I did find one of those the other day. I hadn't found one. It wasn't a baby blanket. It was just a regular,
Right.
could fit on a twin or a full size bed, but it was in immaculate condition. It's in my store now. It was pink, and the satin trim was just, I mean, it almost looked brand new. I did wash it in OxyClean just because
Mhm.
I do that, but it wasn't in the package, didn't have any, like store tags. It had a label on it, I think it was Chatham, Chatham. And the tag said, since the 70s, your, linen partner or something like that. So I was surprised to see it in such good condition.
Mm. I have one in my store right now too. That's like a chocolate brown with sort of a reddish brown satin, and it was made in England for Saks Fifth Avenue.
Wow.
So I have it. I think I have it priced at like 150 or something. I put it on auction, but there were no takers. So
Okay.
I'll just let it ride for a little while and see what happens.
I put
But
mine at 79 because they were selling between 49 and 90, but I think the color has a lot to do with it. It's pink,
sure.
and that there weren't hardly any pink ones. So,
And I also like chenille bedspreads.
those are fun.
I love when I find those. Yeah. And I've had a few quilts. I had a like a $150 Christmas quilt that I sold.
Oh, nice.
But it wasn't handmade. It was a factory made, I think, made in China quilt, but it was beautiful. With, matching shams and everything was very nice. So.
And those can be so unusual. Bedding, somebody either had that item in the past or they're looking for something very specific.
Right.
So I think, it doesn't have to be vintage to be valuable. It just, I start looking for the unusual. That's kind of the direction I'm going in now is, wow, I've never seen that before.
Another thing that I've sold that I thought was kind of odd is people like the vintage vinyl tablecloths with the flannel backing.
Okay.
They're like some kind of floral pattern, maybe a mod looking floral pattern. And those sell pretty well, even if they're in a little bit of rough condition. I recently sold one and it went to England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think I got it for free. I think the woman at the store said, "Oh, you can just have that," because she thought, "Oh, nobody wants that." But
well, and I think
somebody does.
Those vintage items were made so much better. Now they're cheap and crappy and thin, and they tear up quickly. I remember those tablecloths like at Christmas. I mean, back in the day, we had all the neighborhood parties like on that 70s show when all the neighbors would come over. And so my mom entertained a lot, and, she would set up the kitchen table as the bar and have one of those vinyl tablecloths. And then there was 4 kids, I'm one of 4 kids in 5 years. So that was very messy. Wow. And she would use those for us, at mealtime because we were messy little kids. But I remember her wiping them off with a sponge and cleaning them. And now it's just everything is so cheap and inferior.
Disposable.
Yeah. And I think there's a trend away from disposable. I really hope so, at least in my children's lifetime, that we get back to that. I just absolutely detest all of that single-use plastic in the grocery store when you buy cut up fruit or whatever it is. It's just, where's all this stuff going? And what did we do before? It was in paper, paper containers.
So in my house, we use cloth wrapping paper.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I started, probably maybe 15 years ago now. Because I thought, it's just ridiculous. All you do is rip it up and throw it away. And it's such a waste. It's a waste of money. It goes into landfill, So I made, I just hemmed squares of paper, squares of fabric in different sizes. And then at one point I thought, well, I'm going to sell these, I'll go to art fairs and I'll sell these. So I bought up a bunch of vintage, I don't know that they're all vintage, but fabrics a lot of them Christmas fabrics and trims, all kinds. I think I bought something like 3 garbage bags full of this stuff for $50 at a yard sale one time. And I made a bunch of these and I sold some, but then I decided it was just too much work for the amount of money. So that stuff's been sitting there. And I thought, well, eventually I'll get back to it, whatever. So in my effort to downsize and clean up, I started going through those trims. And I posted in one of the Money Making Mondays about some of the trims that I sell. So these vintage trims are bringing all kinds of money. And it was just sitting here in my house. I'm never going to use it again.
Mm-hmm.
I kept enough for myself in case I ever do want to use them again, and I cleared out my house and it feels so good.
So can you elaborate on what the trims are for the listeners? I'm sure ribbons and little plastic.
Yeah, so they're just, like you might see on the edge of a pillow, those kind of trims, or some of them are maybe like a boho style things that we used to put around the bottom of our bell bottoms.
Okay,
right?
fabric trims like rickrack and different little.
Yes, exactly.
Ribbons. Okay, gotcha.
When your pants got too short for you back in the day when you were growing, our moms would sew trim around the bottom to make them longer. So it's all that kind of stuff. Some of them are sparkly sequined ones, and others are more plain. But I had fun going through them and organizing them, and I lotted some of them up, and some of the others that had more yardage and maybe were more desirable, I sold on their own. And of course, I still have a lot of them listed. So
that's a great idea. I love that.
It's a good project.
Yeah.
For the end of winter to kind of clear out my house and find some items to sell.
Right. So last year after Christmas, I went down to my community recycling center and I retrieved wrapping paper out of the recyclers, and I smoothed it out flat and folded it up and stored it. And so I'm going to use that for cushioning and wrapping in things that sell this Christmas season. Like use that instead of, plain white paper or whatever, just like, oh, that's another use for it. And then that would be fun if somebody ordered an ornament or whatever, and they open up and it's got this fun wrapping paper in it. Because it is sad that it only gets used once.
Yes. Well, when we first switched over to the cloth wrapping paper in my house, we missed the sound of ripping paper, Christmas morning.
Right. It's not as exciting when it's silent.
So I thought I should maybe make a CD. Back in those days, it was a CD. I should make a CD of this so people could put that on in their, near their tree while people are unwrapping the presents and make it sound like paper still.
That's a good idea. Got to create that environment.
Yeah. But now my family's used to it.
So we had a little bit of trouble scheduling this podcast recording because you were busy being a world traveler. Do you want to talk about what you were doing?
Sure. I was in Ecuador for 5 weeks this winter to, one, get away from the New Hampshire winter, which is long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind a little bit of winter, but it goes on and on. So, I'm hoping to always be able to get away from winter from here on out a little bit. And then also to sort of check it out, because Ecuador is a place that I might want to either retire to or spend a couple of months every year in the future. And then the third thing was I wanted to work on my Spanish.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And talk about how your day job or your previous day job relates to that Ecuador trip.
Well, it doesn't necessarily relate to the Ecuador trip, other than I'm now free to travel more in the wintertime. So I was a university English language instructor. And because of our decreasing number of students, I lost my job back in 2020 at the sort of at the beginning of the pandemic, although I had to teach online for several months, which I hated. And because of the pandemic, it's not like I could have gone right back out and found another job, because we didn't have, all of the students had gone back to their countries basically.
Oh, right. So they were
Yes.
forced to go back.
Right. And they couldn't come back for a while. I mean, I think now it's picking up a little bit, but it's, it was kind of a blow to the international student population here in the US.
Oh, I didn't think about that part of it.
Yeah. So anyway, so I lost that job, and I really don't want to teach anymore, just because it ties you down so much. And it's also sort of all consuming, it's, people understand that when you're in school as a student, you have homework, right? But when you're a teacher, you have a lot more homework than the students have. You always have to be preparing, correcting papers, all those things. So I just really wanted a break from that. So I'm now doing part-time language test evaluation. So students do maybe a writing portion of an English language test, and I rate that, or I do interviews and I rate their speaking skills.
Okay.
So
so why did you not like the online as compared to in person?
Well, first of all, I think online can be fine if you're set up for that, but it was just a very sudden switch, as you know, when the pandemic hit. And my students, half of them had gone back to their home countries in Asia. Some of them were in quarantine and didn't have enough bandwidth to, to have the proper Zoom connection. A lot of them, and because I didn't know at the beginning, I didn't require it, and they wouldn't even turn their cameras on. So I'm teaching to a bunch of black boxes.
Oh, that's not fun. You can't engage with them. Yeah.
No. And things that you would do in a classroom that take maybe 15 seconds, like assign the next day's homework or something, could take, a half an hour or 45 minutes to type that up and get it all posted and all that kind of stuff. Everything just took so long. And, over time, if you were doing it for a long time, you would have this sort of library of lessons and things like that. So it wouldn't be so difficult. But I started that in March, and I knew my job was ending in May. So I had to do it for these few months, even though, I wasn't going to have a job at the end of it. So it really was terrible for me.
Yeah. And I'm not a teacher like you. I'm a different kind of teacher, but I work with adults. And people don't realize whether you're in the classroom or on Zoom, the preparation that's required.
Yes, exactly.
If you've never had to do that, whether it's being a teacher, working in the corporate world and doing presentations, sales pitches, anything like that, there's so much preparation. And when you're on video and it's being recorded, it's like, I'm very meticulous about everything, how I look, the background, what I'm saying, because when it's being recorded, it's permanent. And, that's why you got to have a thick skin to do YouTube or anything, even these podcasts, because people are going to say, oh, I don't like your makeup. I don't like what you're wearing, blah, blah, blah. And so that's why I don't go on camera very much on YouTube. It's like, I just want to teach y'all this, or, show you these sales. You don't need to see me. You go on occasionally so people can know, like, yeah, you're a real person. But I can create content so much faster if I'm not on camera, because I'm so particular about things, and I'm probably my own worst critic, but it's like, people can be mean, so I try to avoid that part of it.
Well, I've heard other people on your podcast say this, and I want to reiterate that I really appreciate your style and how organized you are and how informative you are, because I watch other videos. Mostly I just listen to them while I'm listing or whatever. But a lot of that's just, somebody standing there shopping, And it's interesting. And I think, oh, I wish I was there and I could grab that item, but it's not nearly as educational as your videos are.
Well, I
So
think
I really appreciate
the
that.
shopping hauls are more reality TV style, and that could be fun. And that's great if that's what you want to do. But I feel like if I'm going to spend my time making something, I want it to help at least one person. At least one person's going to learn something new. And what's amazing to me is I'll do the $100 sale videos or even my own sales update. And within a couple of days, someone will email and say, oh, I just watched your video. I went shopping that day and I found that item. And I'm like, that's a victory. That means I'm not wasting my time. And like everybody can make more money because knowledge really is power in this business. Because I know I've walked by things my entire almost 20-year career because I just didn't know.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people out there are like me, and I can hear you in my head sometimes when I'm at the thrift store. Okay,
Like
look at the planners. Okay.
Like Goodwill doesn't know everything.
Yeah, or eBay has no seasons.
It's all about the person pricing the item. And like, I imagine what's going on in the back at Goodwill. And it's like some employee that's having a bad day. He doesn't even want to be there. And he's just sticking prices on stuff and he doesn't care. And, all he's worried about is when his lunch break is. And it's like, that's what's really going on. They pull things to sell online, but it's not a perfect system. There's a lot of human interaction in getting these items out on the shelf in front of you. And if somebody's like, let's say they turned in their notice and they're quitting and this is their last day, they don't care. They're just biding their time until they can leave. So I feel like that happens a lot.
Well, I'm very excited because my favorite place to source is yard sales.
Okay.
And this weekend, sort of the third week of April is our first yard sale weekend here in New Hampshire. So finally, I get back to yard sales.
So all the resellers come out of their winter cave and they're happy to see the sun and the flowers and they're going to shop. I bet that is a fun time. It's like everything's coming back to life.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So back to your Ecuador experience. You were down there for, you said 5 weeks?
5 weeks, yeah. Yeah, in Cuenca, which is a colonial city in the mountains. It's lovely. It's a beautiful city, old Spanish architecture and really friendly people and very, very inexpensive. And because they use the dollar in Ecuador, they switched to the dollar sometime in the 90s. You can really feel how inexpensive it is. Oftentimes you go to other countries and you're dealing with their currency, so you don't really make that calculation, but in Ecuador you can really feel how inexpensive everything is.
Well, so I understand that there are a lot of clusters of American communities down there.
Yes, yeah. So Cuenca is a big expat community, as well as some other cities in Ecuador, but I think Cuenca might be one of the biggest expat communities in Ecuador. You can rent a nice apartment there for $100 a month, anywhere between like 2 and 7, depending on what kind of apartment. I stayed in a beautiful Airbnb. It was a rooftop cottage.
Oh, nice.
Right on the roof, the view of the city, 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, everything. It was $26 a night.
Oh my.
For an Airbnb, so you can imagine if Airbnb rates are always higher than rental prices. So it's very inexpensive there.
Well, and the fact that Airbnb is global and it's a trusted system where if you have a problem, you have recourse. So it's not like just finding somewhere in another country to stay. You do it all through the Airbnb and Vrbo system. Right. So that's got to give you some confidence that, it's going to work out.
Yes. I'm actually, I have applied to the Peace Corps again. Oh. So I was in the Peace Corps as a young adult. And I always said that, when I got older, if I was free, I'd like to do it again. So I have applied to it again. And I'm waiting, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting because Peace Corps was not operating for more than 2 years. And they've only recently started placing volunteers again. So I'm still waiting. So I kind of have two parallel futures in mind. One involves, eBay and growing my store and going away for winters to warmer climates. And the other one is Peace Corps, in which case I'd have to get rid of all of my eBay inventory.
Oh,
So
right.
it's kind of hard to balance those two, but that's what I've been doing for, almost 2 years now. So
Did you just use the time away feature when you were gone?
I did. And it doesn't, I think it only gives you a month, if I'm correct.
I think 30 days, but you can jump
Yeah.
back in and then extend it again.
Exactly. That's what I did. So I, I think there was like a 6-hour gap between the time that it turned my store back on and I got in there to turn it off again. Of course, I got a sale or an offer or something. It's like, are you kidding me?
Oh, gosh.
Then I turned it back off again. So it was fine.
Okay. And how many items do you have in your store?
I checked this morning, so I would have an exact number for you, 979.
Nice. That's a lot.
Well, I try to list 5 items every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty successful almost every day. I can manage to get 5 items listed. Sometimes there's just like one little thing of trim, right? One little sewing notion. But that had no cost for me. So at least I'm listing something because I feel like it keeps it churning, for the algorithm.
Right.
And then I generally sell about maybe 3 items a day on average.
Oh, nice.
So I'm slowly gaining, 2 items a day to the overall number.
Do you do like end old ones and restart them, or do you set it and forget it?
I usually list 5 new items a day, and then I do 10 sell similar on older items to kind of refresh them.
Okay, so your process on refreshing, people used to do it like looking at the items that were ending that day, but to avoid being charged again. But since eBay's changed the fee schedule, you don't have to do that. So do you sort it by oldest?
I just go to like the last page of my store, and I like right now I'm not refreshing like Christmas or winter coats, things like that. But then I'll just go from the bottom up and I'll start refreshing things that are not seasonal or whatever. So and then I try to do 10 of those a day.
So
it takes
just end the item? Do you do anything to the listing?
I end it and then I hit sell similar, and then I just kind of glance through it on my way down to the button, and I might I might tweak the pictures a little bit, or I might change the order and the title, or I might lower the price, or I might up the promotion, the level of the promotion, depending on what it is. So, and then I release it, and it's surprising how many of those things sell after you do that.
Well, and you get a gold star, at least in my book, because a lot of people just end it and sell similar and don't change anything. And so for the both the Google algorithm and eBay, it needs to be different. The reason that it doesn't sell is because it's stale. And the search engine says, oh, wow, this item's been here for 6 months and it's not getting many views and nobody bought it. So we're going to just keep pushing that down. Yes, if your item is unique enough, it will sell even if it's been sitting there for years. But when you change something, especially the picture, and I've started on my listings doing 2 pictures that I could use for gallery photo so that it's there when I'm ready to refresh it, like if it doesn't sell. But, just refresh that picture, rotate it a little bit or zoom in or zoom out, do something to make it different, because Google Images looks at that. And then, like you said, words in your title. And one thing people don't realize is there's new keywords being used all the time. So you may have a listing you did 6 months ago, but now there's a new keyword out there that people are using, a slang word or a made up word or whatever, that you could add to your listing. And then also jiggle the price a little bit, like change whatever you can that makes sense so that the search engine sees it as a new listing. Because if you just keep rinse and repeat and leaving it the way it's been, it's not going to appear new to the search engine and you're not going to get that boost. And I feel this works. I'm like you. I don't do it every day, but I try to do 5 old listings a day. And usually the time frame is 2 weeks. It will sell within 2 weeks. Not all of them, but I'll be like, oh, I just refreshed that listing last week. So that's something you can do to leverage the work you've already done without having to constantly list new stuff all the time.
Well, one thing I started doing, because I noticed when I was looking on eBay, sometimes the whole title doesn't show, only the first maybe 5 words of the title show. So I started moving the size on clothing. I started moving the size up to maybe be the 3rd or 4th word so that people could see the size, because I'm thinking, if you're just looking for a medium, right, you're not going to bother looking at all these other things. So if they can see that it's a medium right away, maybe they'll click on it. So
okay, and there is some truth to that. In 2018, eBay did like eBay Open or one of those convention things, and they came out with this protocol for the order of the word. One of the things was size does need to be near the front of the title.
Yeah. I didn't know that, until about 6 months ago. So now that's one of the things I change when I do the sell similars. I move the size up, further up. And then usually I'll either lower the price or up the promotion level. And so I say to myself, I could lower this by a couple bucks, or I could put a couple more bucks in the promotion level, which I don't know if that works or not, but it's sort of a trial and error process.
So are you choosing a percentage, or how are you doing your promoted listings?
Yeah, percentage. I usually, it's somewhere between 1 and maybe 6 at the most. Like that. Yeah. Most of my things, when I list them at 1, but if they don't sell after a while, sometimes I'll up that.
I used to be a die-hard promoted listings person, but as I'm moving away from items that have a lot of competition,
right,
I don't need it anymore. They sell without being promoted because they're so unique. They're going to come up in searches anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and what I did notice too, and it's something I didn't know at first when I started doing promoted listings, is that they actually have to click on the one that was promoted in order for you to be charged the promoted fee. So even if you promote them, doesn't mean they're always going to be sold through promoted.
Right. And then they have that, I think it's a 30-day cookie that if somebody clicked on it and they buy it within 30 days of them clicking, then you are still charged that fee. Really? It doesn't have to be at the time they buy it. So like, let's say they're a watcher, or they put it in their cart or bookmarked it somehow. That's standard.
Where would that fee show up though? Because when I go through my transactions, I go through the all payment part on the transactions. And when the item sells, that's when the promoted.
Yeah, that's when they're charged, is when it sells. But this is standard procedure.
I see what you're saying.
Online ads is there's this, it's called a cookie. So if they click it on February 1st and look at it and whatever, come back to it on February 25th, then you're going to be charged that promoted listing fee.
Okay. So they can't come back later. They can't come back later.
Yeah. They're not charged when they click on.
Okay. I got it.
Look at it. They're charged that fee, but when you set up your promoted listing campaigns, that's the fine print.
I see.
Be aware that this has a 30-day cookie, blah, blah, blah. And most people just glaze over that fine print, but that's standard for if you have a blog or a website or anything with ads. It's basically tagging that customer
Okay.
so that they can charge you for it.
The other thing, maybe you know something about this, but the other thing I've been wondering about is this new way of promoting auctions where you have to pay up front to promote your auction. Now, I don't do very many auctions, but the last, I think 3 or 4 auctions that I've done, I got no bids at all. So it makes me wonder if I should do that, that upfront fee. Do you have any idea how that works and if it works?
Because I'm not an auction person. I don't have success with them either. My standard protocol is price high, see what offers you get, and the market will tell you if you're in the right ballpark. So if you price something at $300, but you keep getting offers for $150, that's the market telling you your price is too high. And that's going to happen over time. Give it 90 days to see what kind of offers you get. And you can always go on that listing and click manage offers and see all the offers you've received. And that's when I'll change my price because a lot of times you'll list something and you'll get an offer half of what you asked within a day. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to wait a little bit, but I guess I am too impatient for auctions, or I have tried them and I keep trying as time goes by, and I'm not getting bids.
The only time I do it is if I have something and I really don't know how to price it. I mean, I think that it could, with the right eyes on it or enough eyes on it, I think that it could really get bid up. And that's the only time I'll do it. But I haven't had any luck in the last 3 or 4 auctions I've done. So,
yeah. And I think maybe customers are impatient. They don't want to wait 5 to 7 days for that to be over and buy it. They're doing a project right now. I know a lady, that sounds so old fashioned. I have a friend of a friend who is opening a donut shop. It's called Parlor Donuts, and they're actually cronuts, if you know what that is, but it's a cross between a croissant and a donut. And so she's working on that, but there are very strict rules about the kind of decor you can have. Like Cracker Barrel has all that old stuff on the wall, old farm tools and black and white photos and old advertisements. It's kind of like that. And, she's looking for very specific things for the decor of this donut store. And it's a higher end brand. So, but I think about people like that, they find what they want, they find what they're looking for because it's very specific and they just want to buy it right now. They don't want to wait.
Right. Yeah.
And people are impatient.
I don't want to wait if I'm buying something either. I mean, I probably would never buy anything on auction.
Yeah,
then
people are just impatient in general in the world we live in because everything is so instant. Right. So maybe that's why auctions don't get as many bids anymore. But then again, I see people on the group selling things all the time on auction. And, I had 47 bids and that kind of thing. So I don't know that there is one answer for that.
I guess it has to be a really, really special item.
Right. Now let's talk about some of your biggest sales.
Okay. Well, I only have one really big sale. I have, and then I have maybe $20 or $25, $100, $150 sales, but nothing in between. So when I first started, I had only been doing eBay for about a month. I went to an estate sale and there was a case of dolls. And I spent $25 on a doll, which was like 10 times more than anything I had spent.
That's kind of scary for a new person to spend that much on something.
But I liked it. And I thought, even if it doesn't sell, I don't know if I would keep it because I'm not really a doll person, but I thought it was worth at least $25. So it was a Chinese doll. The doll itself was just like some basic kind of plastic doll, but it was dressed as a Revolutionary Guard from the Cultural Revolution, the Red Guard. So it was a girl doll, and she had the Red Guard uniform, and she had a rifle, and she had a flag, and it was very unique, because they don't, in China, they don't really talk about that time period too fondly. So I don't think they normally make dolls like this. They might be banned even, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I bought the doll and I put it on auction for, I think, $50, which I thought, ooh, $25 profit. That would be huge, right? I started it at 50, and immediately I had someone message me and ask if she could buy it for 75. And I said, this is the first time I've done an auction. I'm going to just let it ride. I thought about it. So she bid 75, I think, or she bid like 50, eventually it got up to $76. So, with 10 minutes left to go, the doll was at $76. And so I thought, oh, well, that's it, 76, or maybe it'll go to 100 or something. But how it kicks in like 2 minutes before the end of the auction, my phone and my computer, they start like dinging and buzzing and all kinds of craziness. And I kept hitting refresh. And when all was said and done, it went for $1,350.
Wow.
I was shocked. There was probably only 2 bidders. I don't know if I even knew how to look back then, how many bidders there were. But, I'm sure it went to some young, wealthy Chinese, which were kind of the students that I had. So I know they have a lot of money especially for things like that they think are kind of special or rare about their own country. So yeah, $1,350. And then of course, after that, I just wanted to reproduce that feeling again and again, but I still haven't.
Like the first time you do heroin, the high is
exactly.
never as good later.
Yeah.
That first high is the best.
Yeah.
That's funny. eBay crack.
The worst thing was there were actually 4 of those dolls at that estate sale, but I only bought one. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that one kind of stands apart. That's like my autograph book that sold for $1,000, which now, I always look back, probably should have put that on auction, but oh well. It was $1,000 on a $3 item. So I can't complain.
Yeah.
So what are some of your other notable sales? Because I do see you posting a lot of things over $100.
Not too many, but I like to sell scarves a lot. That's one of my favorite things to sell. And most of them are not really high dollar. They're, $15 to $20, something like that. But I have had 4 scarves over $100. Just, kind of lucky finds, if you will. And then quite a few scarves up in the $30, $50 range as well. So that's one of my all-time favorite things to sell because, they're beautiful, they're small, they're easy to list, easy to keep. And to ship is a breeze.
Well, and I know what to look for. I just haven't seen one yet, but like the, is it the Anne Klein with the lion logo on it, or the Ralph Lauren equestrian scarves, Burberry with the leaping horse, and all like, when you're looking through the scarves, okay, this is crappy Walmart. This is, you can tell by feeling it if it's silk.
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to find just by texture.
Right.
And
what I usually look for is a signature on the scarf or a tag that tells who the maker is. If they don't have it, unbranded scarves don't go for very much. Some women, I think, got in the habit of cutting the tags out of their scarves. So sometimes you don't know. So you might have an unbranded scarf or one that doesn't have the tags on anyway, that is valuable. But for the most part, if it doesn't have a name or a tag that says it was made in Italy, say, they're not worth very much.
Well, and even if they cut the tag off and it's got the signature on the fabric,
that's fine.
You can say, here, you just describe what it is, and people say, oh, but I don't know what it's made of. Well, you just say that. There's no content tag. It feels like this.
Yeah.
And if it is truly a vintage, let's say Ralph Lauren equestrian style with like the, I've seen them with saddles and all kinds of different
Right.
things
Yes.
on them.
Yeah.
You just say that. And if it's truly vintage, it's probably going to be silk. And they may not even care. They just like that pattern. We used to wear scarves in high school in the 80s. That was a big thing.
Well, you can pretty quickly, you get to know the feel of silk pretty easily. And you look for rolled edges as well. That usually means it's a little higher end. But
right. You're finished.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're rolled as opposed to they're rolled and maybe hand sewn.
Right.
Instead of being machine finished.
You can tell by looking at it that there's much more detail, and it was more labor and time intensive to make.
Right. And the other thing I think is pretty important is to try to hold it up to the light somewhere, because a lot of scarves get like moth damage. It almost looks like scarring on the scarves. And a lot of times you don't see that till you get home. So I've learned over time to really hold them up to the light and get a good look at them.
Yeah, there's like a little trail. You can see a little trail.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then again, it may not matter as long as you say that. Some people just like those vintage scarves because of the nostalgia.
Yeah. And again, you don't see that damage a lot of times. So if you were wearing it, you wouldn't see it. It's only when you hold it up to the light. So I often say that. I say, well, it's not noticeable if you're wearing it.
Right.
Yeah. So I love to sell scarves. I probably have 100 scarves listed now, and they all fit in one little drawer.
Isn't that great? I love that.
Yeah.
Love scarves, those wool beanies, ski hats.
Yes.
I love how many you can store in a small area.
Yeah.
So maybe when you join the Peace Corps, you can just drive your RV to wherever you're going to be and bring your inventory.
I don't think that'll work because of the postal system. Believe me, I have thought about these things, not necessarily Peace Corps, but if I were to move somewhere else for the winter, if I could still do eBay. But, in most of the places I'm interested in living, their postal system is not one that's going to allow me to do eBay.
Right. It'll be outside the US. Yeah.
So anyway, so I've sold some other kind of really interesting things. I found some Chinese slippers that were made for bound feet. The little tiny slippers. They're about 4 inches long and beautifully, handmade and beautifully decorated. So those were in the $100 range. I sold a mahjong set. So what's really fun for me is like if I find something and then learning all about it, because in order to check to see if it's complete, right, or to part it out if it's some kind of lot of something, you kind of have to do this deep dive into this subject. And I really enjoy that. It's really fun.
Right. Yeah. Some of those mahjong sets are very expensive. And I think the old ones had ivory pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you can sell those now, but.
Right. You can't. Nothing with ivory, but or maybe Bakelite. I know that there are
the one I have
is sets with Bakelite pieces. Those are expensive. So, okay.
But I like that process of, when you find something and then you just maybe spend a couple days immersed in this topic. Recently, I've been also another project of cleaning out my house and whatever. I've been getting rid of my old Barbie stuff and Barbie clothes and actually like pricing them individually. I just got $50 for a little tiny dress, so
crazy.
Yeah. But, if you take the easy way out, you could just say, oh, here's a lot of Barbie clothes. Right. But if you get in there and you price them all individually, it takes a long time and it's a big project. But I actually kind of enjoy that and think it's kind of fun, to look through and then try to match the shoes that originally came.
Oh my gosh. It is those things are so small. I was helping my friend. She had her Barbies from this 60s and before. There was a Ken in there from the 50s, a Ken doll. And we were going through all that thinking, how do we want to do this? We want to do it individually or as a lot. And I mean, the clothing was so small, we had to use the magnifier on our phones to like look at the tag on the inside. And just the clothes are so little.
Yeah.
If you got to get your extra strong reading glasses to figure all that out and then take pictures of it. So I commend those people who buy the lots of, Barbie stuff, 400 pieces, and then they go through it all. That's really a process.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing these last couple of weeks, because I had bought some stuff at an estate sale, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, some Barbies and some clothes. And I did that process then with those, but then I still had a lot of that left. And then when I got my own stuff out, I realized that there were pieces from that lot before that was left that match with the pieces. Here's the purse that goes with this outfit. And if you can put together like the whole thing, you can get a lot more money for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's one with her wearing a raincoat and the rain boots, and that outfit just the outfit goes for like $400.
Exactly. It's crazy.
The stewardess one with the hat and all the accessories that go with it. It's a time capsule.
Yeah. And the other thing that brings a lot of money are American Girl doll clothes. Mm-hmm. So if you can find any of those, the actual real American Girl doll clothes, I sold a little pair of boots for $49. It's like, oh, I'll do this all day long, play with my dolls and then make a lot of money over.
It's such a contrast of, we feel like, oh, people out there aren't going to pay this, and, people don't have the money for this. And then somebody comes along and pays $400 for Barbie clothes or a Christmas ornament. And exactly. So it's like you have the money to spend on things you want. It's all discretionary. Like I personally wouldn't do that. Right. But, I would spend my money on something else that's important to me. So you can't make assumptions of like, there's so much unemployment and, all these reasons that the economy is bad. Last week, I sold a stuffed animal for $250. Like, the economy wasn't bad for that person.
Well, thank goodness there are people out there that are doing that, for people like us. So.
Well, it's all how you want to look at it, and I Googled the person's address just to see, what it was. And it was a very modest little ranch brick house in like Ohio. They didn't look rich on the outside. And I've done that for other high dollar sales, and it's like $1 million condo in Miami. So you just don't know. It's all about discretionary income. Maybe that
priorities
has been looking for this stuffed animal for their grown child as a gift, and it popped up, here it is. And maybe they just got a huge tax refund, or maybe somebody passed away and left them a bunch of money. You don't know. You have no idea what's going on in that person's life. All I know is that they wanted what I had, and they paid what I was asking based on the research. And that's all I really need to know. Don't try to figure it out, and don't make assumptions. So, the Barbie clothes, I commend you on that, because I guess that's what you do when you have a blizzard and you're snowed in for a month.
That's right.
Sort through the Barbie shoes.
we can't get outside much here in New Hampshire in the winter, so we go through Barbie clothes.
There you go. No wonder you're so excited about spring.
Yeah, exactly.
So my last question is, what kind of advice would you give to people just starting out, or who want to get into vintage items, or any kind of advice based on what you have learned along the way?
I think what I would say is that, starting eBay is a very sort of steep but short learning curve. Just about anybody can get on eBay and start selling stuff. But being successful at it is the long game, because it takes a long time to get that knowledge in your head. You can listen to these podcasts and have lists of all the different kinds of anthropology clothing, and whatever, but they don't really get into your brain unless you keep doing it over and over again, and you make some mistakes along the way, and you kind of figure things out. So, I would say, don't give up if you're not being successful right away. It takes some time to incorporate all this information into your process, and also your process of sourcing and listing, that takes time to figure out how to do things, most efficiently. So I think don't give up too soon would be my advice.
Yeah, and I do hear that a lot from people who jump in and after a year, they're like, I'm quitting. It's just not for me. And, how do I get rid of all my inventory and that kind of thing? And it's like, you're right. It's a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
Because you learn every single day, like when you're researching all that stuff that you said, that's the part you like. And I think that shows a sign of advanced intelligence when you like the research. Like, what is this thing? Where did it come from? What's it made of? How many are out there? What do they sell for? You're just constantly thirsty for more information. And that is what it takes. You have to be willing to do that research. But when did you start doing eBay? How many years ago?
2018. So
so you've only been doing it about 4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first it was much more part-time than it is now. Now it's about maybe half-time, I guess.
Okay. So you just have to, I use this analogy. It's like swimming. You can read all about it. You can watch videos. You can talk to people, but until you get in that pool and do it yourself, you're not going to get it.
Right.
You have to just jump in and do it.
There's a lot of trial and error. For a while, about a year ago, I think I was watching some YouTube videos, and it was all about pots and pans. So I went out and I got pots and pans. Well, I hate pots and pans. Half of them are still sitting here because they're so big to ship. Nobody wants to pay the shipping costs. And so I learned. It was a hard lesson, but I learned it. And there are other things like that as well. You go through different categories and you say, this is the category for me. And then you realize, no, it's not. So it takes a while to figure those things out.
Yeah, that's me. Electronics and golf clubs. I tried both. It wasn't fun for me.
Right.
I like things that I can rescue and clean up and that are easy to ship and that don't get returned.
Yeah, I haven't had a big problem with returns, so
that's
I'm
good.
Pretty lucky about that. Yeah,
that's good. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for delaying our interview until you got back.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
I'm in Ecuador, and I'm like, what?
I really enjoy all of the content that you put out, so I'm happy to participate in it if you ask me to, for sure.
Well, thank you. And I think it does take a village to learn about this because everybody has a different perspective and different experience and can bring different things to the table. So I'm going to continue with these interviews because there's just unlimited, more people keep coming. There's just unlimited people to talk to.
Well, one of your interviews a few podcasts ago mentioned following people's stores. If you see people on the Money Making Monday or the over $100 or over $300 post, to follow their store, and that's something I've just started doing. I think that's a great idea.
Yes, and for those that don't know, you go to somebody's store, and it's very small. It's in the upper right. And I think it says save this seller, and it's a little heart. And when you click on the heart, it turns red. So then it goes into your saved sellers and you can check in on people, which is what people do for me. I'll list something and then I'll get a message like, oh, I can't believe you found that. And I'm like, okay, they're following me because how do they know I just listed that? Which is fine. That's why I put myself out there is, we learn by doing and we learn from other people. So it's not a problem, but I follow a lot of other sellers too, because I don't know everything.
Educational stalking is what it is.
Well, why would eBay make it available if there was something wrong with it? They
Right.
want us to be a community and to support each other. And, that's another thing. Whenever I want to buy something, I go to eBay first. I have an Amazon Prime membership, but I always support the eBay community and go there first. And then if I can't find it, or, the price is ridiculous, then I'll go look on Amazon. But so yeah, watch other people and buy from other people.
Yes, great idea.
Okay, Nancy. Well, it was great chatting with you, and we will see you on the Facebook group.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks again for coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom, Nancy. Today's motivational quote is from John D. Rockefeller. I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity. So think about that when things aren't going right. Maybe you are getting pushed in a different direction, or try to look for opportunities where others are looking at things as a disaster, because some of the greatest ideas in history came out of disasters and chaos. Just some food for thought. Thanks so much for spending this hour with us, and I will talk to you next week. Happy selling! Bye!